I too will hasten my remarks, and hopefully we'll have time for a good question and answer session from the audience, and you can participate instead of just sitting there and listening to us. You have something important to say as well. Let me just, a few thoughts. My wife always says, if you don't tell them your books are here, how are they supposed to know? More in common than you think. My newest book on Islam and Christianity, many of you have seen it, some of you haven't. It's outside of the little table there on the left. Perhaps there's never been a time in the history of America when Muslim and Christian must find each other. If you've been listening to the media this week, if you've heard Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson and Ralph Reed and the Christian Coalition, I'm telling you that the politics, the agenda, the political agenda, along with the religious extreme right wing, have come together in a very powerful fist. And even our president, yesterday, with the bombing in Karachi, did you hear his statement when he said, these people claim to be religious, now the Muslims are killing Muslims? I heard that same phrase back in 1969 in Jerusalem from the Israelis and the Zionists who said, we don't kill Palestinians and Arabs, Arabs kill Arabs. Same lines. American Ummah, you must wake up. You must begin to stand up, or the silence is deafening from the Ummah. You need all the help you can get now, because this is a war of spiritual warfare. Even I as a Christian am telling you that the churches are now fighting. We have the mainline Protestant Christian churches versus the right wing who have condemned the prophet, peace be upon him, and called him a pedophile. If you've been sleeping, you haven't heard that. You need to wake up. This was on worldwide television. Mr. Falwell's at it again. It was Jerry Falwell who said 3 weeks ago on an MSNBC, these people get on all the talk shows. They don't get a Christian who knows the language, who knows the people, and will puncture that balloon, that propaganda balloon, because there is a definite effort to keep it going. It's a political agenda disguised as many other things. But beware, and I'm warning you, you need to get all the Muslim and Christians together. These are the best friends you can have in this country, are the Christians. Take your share of them. Come together, and this will be a real power to withstand the propaganda distortions against Islam. Because under that propaganda, Jerusalem is plowed under. Everybody talks about, in my lifetime in this country, the Jews returning to their homeland and Jerusalem being their capital. Ariel Sharon, now it's Sharon. His name was Sharon for years. But in their latest incursions, if these were Muslims or Arabs doing these things, it would have been a terrorist attack in Jenin and Ramallah. But no, this is an incursion. That's like collateral damage that we invented. And now I'm hearing rhetoric from Washington that talks about preemptive strikes. We had better wake up. The Arab world and the Muslim world are in great jeopardy. And it is a political agenda, and you need to get serious about it. I'm serious. 30 years of my life in this business of working for justice for Palestinians. That's why I wear this, which was given to me by a Palestinian who was one of the original founders of the Palestine Liberation Organization. And he was assassinated. And I wear this all the time. In fact, his last words were to me in London, "You are our voice. Speak for us." So I wrote the other book, Theft of a Nation, which I have only a few here. Theft of a people, theft of a land, how Palestine was stolen. Now this is Jerusalem that I'm talking about, because Jerusalem historically is a land of, as Dr. Siddiqui well said, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. But that's an easy phrase. It is much more than that. As a young student studying archaeology and living in Jerusalem, I've lived there. And as one who has lived there and studied there, it is much more than just a phrase. To Christians whom we never hear about, 15% of the Palestinian people, the Philistines, are Christians. But But you never hear that on the media. And their quarter in the old city is being taken. The Israelis continue to take more of it, more of it, more of it. And the mayor continues to allow more of Jerusalem to be taken from the Christian quarter. Because there's so few, and they don't speak up, and they have no voice. And many Christians have fled Jerusalem, which is their home, their roots, and their rights. You know, as a young man in churches here, I grew up in the church, and I must remember, along with Paul Finley, my good friend, we talked about this. We both learned this song, Glory to the Knights of Old. It's a song about the Knights of the Crusaders. And we used to sing that every Sunday morning, glorifying the Crusaders. And it went on about their great victories, and especially Jerusalem, that when they came into Jerusalem, and they killed every living thing there. And by the way, history says, and the diaries of those who were there say that they killed Jews and Christians, as well as Arabs and Muslims. They killed everybody. And yet, we still hear this word in this country and in the West and in England, crusade. Insensitivity. Jerusalem is a city not owned by any religion or any man. It is the city owned by Allah Himself. It is Allah who created that city. Yes, David was there, but Philistines were there before the Israelis and the Israelites. They aren't Israelis. They were Israelites, Hebrews. The word Jew is not even in the Old Testament and in my Bible until very recent, in the last book of the prophet Malachi. One of my degrees is in sacred literature, and I can tell you that's exactly right in the Hebrew. So who are these people? Well, the Philistine people, Lebanon, Phoenicians, all of those people from that area are from there. They're not from Eastern Europe, they're from there. Jerusalem has been their city. The oldest name is Jerusalem. Peace, city of peace, and named after the Jebusites. I know as an archaeologist, that's exactly the oldest people. That's the oldest name for that city. City, the peace of the Jebusites. And they were Semitics. They weren't Hebrews. They were Arab people. So let me tell you, Jerusalem is a city that's divided, but not in the mind of Allah. Indeed, as the Quran says, I could have created you separate and different, but I made you one. All people should live in that city in peace. I've walked those streets. And by the way, that diary of one of the Crusaders wrote this, and I quote, he said, "It was a glorious victory when we took Jerusalem. Our horses waded in blood up to their bridles, up to their necks in blood. It was a marvelous, glorious victory for God and for all believers in God." Jerusalem is now the same type of possession. There are those who want to possess it. You cannot possess it, as Dr. Siddiqui said. It is to be shared. It is to be an open city. And I must say that I advocate Jerusalem, and I alone, many of you have not been there. Maybe you visited, but I lived there. I lived on Sahabuddin Street at St. George's College. I studied some there. And I ought to tell you, it's one of the greatest cities and a very special city. Not only for Isa and Jesus, my faith, but yours too because of your reverence for Isa. And even as Dr. Siddiqui says, the return of the Al-Masih, the Messiah, which I look forward to too. My dear friends, Jerusalem is a special place of smell. When I say Jerusalem, I stand here and I can still smell the falafel. I can smell it. And the little boys cooking it on the street and the smoke coming